Hello, Africans, both home and abroad. This video is about you. You see, our people have a saying that if a big problem incapacitates you, smaller ones will begin to climb on top of you, knowing that you are already vulnerable and you are incapacitated. You are challenged by a very big, humongous problem. So smaller one will begin to mock you. Yoruba say that Tiya and Laba Gbeni Shole, KKK, Amagurieni. And that is why a country like France will be insulting us, will be abusing us. And this is because we have not pressed enough for what we actually want the international community to do for us, particularly Africa, African leaders. You have reached a point that you have to rise to the occasion to demand what is yours. We have been robbed. We've been chastised. We've been demeaned. We've been abused. We've been cheated by so many countries, including France. If we are talking of big powers cheating on us all the time, is it a country like France that cannot exist without Africa, that will be insulting and abusing our leaders? Recently, I listened to a French leader, Emmanuel Macron, to be precise, where he was abusing Africans, abusing Africa, and abusing African leaders, insulting them all together. Imagine Emmanuel Macron telling Africans or some African leaders that they are not grateful, that if not for France, some of them will not attain their sovereignty. What an insult indeed. I see, this is exactly what Africans should be saying. Just because you have refused to say this to France, and France, is taking up the gauntlet and giving you that insult. Yes, the same France that colonized so many African countries, instead of giving them complete independence, you give them ordinary flag independence. They are still economically dependent on you. They are still socially dependent on you. In every area, they are still dependent on you. In fact, you control their economy. You control their social life. You control their narrative. You control everything about them. Because some of them are now realizing it. We can't say it's too late, but better late than ever. Better late than never. Some of them are realizing now, sending you packing away from their country. You are angry. In fact, Emmanuel Macron is someone I can say that is the most unlucky leader of France. Because it is during his own tenure that Africa is gaining its renaissance. It is during his own tenure that Africans, their eyes are beginning to open to know all the years of deprivation, all the years of oppression. They are throwing all this away during the time of Emmanuel Macron. That is what is paining the man. That is making him to abuse Africa, to still continue to denigrate Africa in spite of all that they have done. Look, this is just a preamble. Africans, I want you to listen very attentively. I want to show you two videos, short video. Then in your own judgment, you can tell me at the comment stage, who should be apologizing for who? Who is the most ungrateful in this relationship? Who should be begging who? Who should be paying reparation to whom? Because we have refused to talk. No wonder. It is true. If you refuse to tell your own story, outsiders, especially ignorant outsiders, selfish outsiders, they will tell your story for you. That's exactly what Emmanuel Macron is trying to do. Trying to rewrite history. And he's even rewriting that history in a way that stands logic upside down. I want you to listen to these 2 videos. Then you will know. You tell me, or let's discuss it. Who should pay who? Who should apologize for who? And who is the most ungrateful in this relationship between Africa and France? Listen to this. Just a snippet. I want you to see this first and see the other one. Then let's come back at the end of these 2 videos and discuss. Look at it.
Now, Senegal and Chad have reacted strongly after French President Emmanuel Macron said Sahel countries were ungrateful for the role France played in fighting jihadist insurgencies. Let's listen to what he had to say to ambassadors in Paris.
We had a relationship based on security. On one hand, our commitment to fighting terrorism since 2013. We were right to do so. I think some have forgotten to say thank you, but that's okay. It will come in time. Ungratefulness, I know all too well, is a disease that is not transmitted to humans. But I say this for all the African heads of state who have not had the courage, in the face of public opinion, to hold that view. None of them would be in a sovereign country today if the French army had not been deployed in this region.
They did something else in addition to chopping us up. They also set out to make the African believe that everything African was bad and undesirable, and everything Western, particularly French and British, was more desirable. We call that the legacy of colonization. Prior to that, they had started long working on the slaves. Make them think everything about them, forget anything about Africa. Where you come from is a horrible place, diseased and dying people, constantly at war with themselves, uncivilized. Cut out any communications with them. You need to just know what we tell you. And we call that the legacy of slavery. So that's where you look at where we are today. 135 years later, a system that was put in place to see to it that Africa and her children are forever defeated, that Africa is forever exploited, remains in place today, alive and well. And we sit here and we ask ourselves, why isn't Africa moving forward? Why does Africa continue to be taken advantage of? Well, I'll tell you why, very simply. Until Africa comes together as a continent speaking with one voice, one continent, one people, nothing, and I repeat, nothing is gonna change. As individual little African countries, we are wannabe boxers. We will never make it fighting against the heavyweights. We must speak with one voice. Yes. And this is exactly what our Pan-African leaders wanted to see happen in 1963 when they came together in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. They clearly stated that Africa for the Africans at home and abroad, and that African Union was now. They said Africa must speak with one voice. It is the only way for Africa to take its rightful place on the world stage. Sadly, when they went to Addis Ababa in 1963, they were divided. We had 2 factions, the Casablanca group and the Monrovia group. The Casablanca group were saying Africa for the Africans at home and abroad, and African Union now. This was Ghana, Guinea, Mali, Egypt, Morocco, Algeria, and Tunisia. Only 7. The other 25 of the 32 who attended were the Monrovia group. They were the nationalists. They said, let's go slow. Let's kind of wait on this Pan-African thing. 55 years later, 56 this year, we're still going slow. As if it wasn't bad enough that we were divided up into the tiny little countries that we are today. The gift that Berlin Conference gave us. One other thing that France did, between 1958 and 1961 in the name of giving us our independence as African countries. France forced the Francophone, and I hate that terminology. There is no such thing as Francophone, Anglophone. They made it up. But for the purposes of communication, I will use that. 14 of those countries, they said, in order for you to get your independence from us, you must sign this document. You thought they could have found a better name for the document. The document was called the Pact for the Continuation. I repeat, the Pact for the Continuation of Colonization. We are talking about giving you independence, but sign this pact for the continuation of colonization in a different format. And I'm going to highlight some of those issues that they said you must agree to if you are going to be independent. Hello. Maybe we need to redefine the meaning of independence for the French. First, France said, you see, you monkeys, you don't know how to manage your money. We're going to demand that you deposit 85% of your bank reserves with the French Minister of Finance. Under the French Central Bank, under the control of the French Minister of Finance. France is then going to take your 85% bank deposits from each and every one of you. Deposit those funds in the French stock market under the French name. And you may or may not know the returns. Today, as we speak, the latest figures are saying for every 14 billion that France invests in the stock market from Africa, they are realizing upwards of 300 billion in return. Every year in, year out, because of these deposits from the African countries, France is taking out of Africa over $500 billion. Now figure it out. For every 14 billion, the returns on the investment are over 300 billion, and they are taking over 500 billion. So in actuality, France is taking out of Africa trillions of dollars year in and year out from us poor people, Africans. Back to the pact. So should you want to access some of your money that you have deposited with France, you have to submit your country's financial returns. And if approved, you get to get it as a loan. You can only access up to 20% of your money year in, year out as a loan at commercial interest rates. Your own money. As if that was not enough. They said all your minerals discovered, yet to be discovered, all your oil discovered, yet to be discovered. France and French companies have the first right of refusal. If there's anything left over that the French companies do not want, your people might have. To this day. They said you will only use the currency that we created for you because you're special Africans. We call it the CFA. There was the Central African CFA and the Western African CFA, same animal. And that France is the only one that can print it for you. 1958. Fast forward. They're still printing it for us. And if you start misbehaving, they just stop printing your money. And your country's in trouble. They also said your language of instruction shall be French, whether you like it or not. That France will have military presence in your country. That your military can only be trained by France. That you can only buy military equipment from France. That you cannot have any military alliance with your neighbor. And that in the event of war, your allegiance is only to France. And furthermore, because they have military presence in your country, they can invade you without notice should they feel that the interests of France in your country are being violated.
Teach, sister, teach. Speak, sister.
Fast forward. 2019, nothing has changed. The same people who have the audacity to tell us that we are poor countries, they are taking trillions out of Africa every year. Then one might say, why is it that African leaders haven't done anything about this deplorable situation? Well, let me tell you, my brothers and sisters, they have tried. Documented to this day, 22 coups where leaders were assassinated. France had something to do with it. The first 7, when they decided they were pulling out of the CFA and that they're going to print their own money, they were assassinated. Every time an African leader has tried to do what's best for their country, they were assassinated. Majority of them aided by France. It's a known fact. And then others, they were just mercenaries who felt that when there was a natural resource discovered in one country, they wanted to create a coup. So while the country is thrown into a civil war, they're siphoning the natural resource. We know of one particular story that had we not known about it, it would have been, oh, there we go again, the Africans. In about 25 years ago, a group of young, rich white kids were having fun in Cape Town. They found out that there was oil in Equatorial Guinea that just been discovered, and they wanted it. So they set out a plan to have a coup in Equatorial Guinea. So while the Guineans are busy fighting a civil war, they will be siphoning the oil. But they made one mistake. There were 2 planes. One was to leave South Africa, stop in Zimbabwe, pick up more ammunition on their way to hunt in Equatorial Guinea. Another plane was taking off in the Caribbean that had this puppet diaspora who was supposed to be the next president. Mugabe wondered why such young people needed such powerful ammunition to go hunt in Equatorial Guinea. In doing his research further, he found out that this was a coup in the making. He allowed them to land in Zimbabwe. They loaded their plane, and just before takeoff, they were all arrested. The ringleader of that group was none other than the son of the former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Margaret Thatcher. She had to fly to Zimbabwe and paid handsomely to get her son out. The last one of those prisoners left Zimbabwe about 6-7 years ago. Had these young people succeeded, it would have been another coup. There you go, the Africans again. Such, my brothers and sisters, is the story of your Africa. They don't do coups anymore. They simply create instability. So when you hear of an instability in an African country, ask yourself, what is really going on? Because what they are telling you is really going on is just a shiny object. The real issue is over here. And you need to stop before you start being used as an instrument of your own self-destruction.
You heard him? In fact, you've heard the 2 of them. Now, in your own opinion, who should be begging who? It is true that France is losing grips on Africa gradually. Emmanuel Macron is not happy that many of them are now realizing the oppressive regime they have been under all this while and they are breaking away. He's not happy. And so he's running his mouth. You've heard both Macron and Professor Arikana. Based on these historical facts you have just heard, and in fact, not just history, some of them are still under this yoke as we speak. Those who are yet to break away, like Niger did, like Burkina Faso did, like Mali did, those who are yet to break away, there are still many of them under the yoke of France as we speak now. And so he's afraid that many more will break away. That's why he's running his mouth. Africa. This is the time for, progressive Africans to rise up and team up with those 3 countries. Yes, Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso. Maybe Ghana can take up the role their great-great-great-grandfather enunciated Kwame Nkrumah. What I'm saying, essence, is that we should not leave those three countries in this battle, because it's a battle. France will do everything like he used to do, like she did during the time of Charles de Gaulle, like he did with Guinea for attempting to ask for independence in a very little way. You heard what they did to Guinea. That ordinary pole, electric pole, they remove everything from the street of Guinea. Not only to teach Guineans a lesson, but also to tell those who will make attempt to want to speak out, to want to cry out, to want to ask for help, to want to get independence from this oppressive France, for them to desist from such act. You see what they did to Guinea. They are still doing it today. That is why I'm making a clarion call to African leaders to team up with these three countries. I don't want to express my fear about Nigeria, because I do not see any reason why the president of Nigeria should be hobnobbing with Macron at this time. People should ask President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, what are you doing with France? What are you doing with this regime that is looking for how to extend his territory again, having lost some? Is Nigeria going to be the next? So I want progressive African leaders to really see reason with these other countries and completely break the yoke of France off their neck permanently. That's my opinion. I don't know what your opinion is about this, because I know that Africa will not and cannot afford to continue under this yoke of imperialism. That is why Macron, who ought to be begging, apologizing, is abusing and running us down. That we should be grateful. African countries should be grateful. From what Professor Arikana has just said, remove all these oppressive extortions that, that France is getting from Africa. Remove it from France and see what remains of France. Whether France will be wealthier or richer or greater than any so-called third world country. Let me rest my case and wait for your robust, comment on the comment stage. You've heard both arguments. You heard the two. Who should be apologizing for whom? Who should beg who? Who should pay reparation? Who should be grateful for even keeping them alive? For making France to be what it is today, to rank among the superpowers in the world. Will France have been able to achieve this without Africa? Let's discuss it. Till I come your way again, I remain Professor Femi Adegbulu, the only peacemaker who comes to peace table with a weapon of mass destruction, the truth, because I say the way it is, point blankly, without caring whose horse is good. If you are just visiting my channel for the first time, you can see the quality of what to expect from Femi Adegbulu on Point Blank. I urge you to subscribe and press the notification button too, so that anytime a video such as this comes up again, you'll be the first to get it. Till we come to each other's way again in my next video, stay out of trouble so that we can meet in peace. God bless you all. Femi Adegbulu signs out.